Welcome back, eSIMstudios YouTube channel, eSIMstudios live stream. Glad to have you back in here with me this afternoon. Hope everybody's having a good afternoon. I know I am, definitely staying busy. But look, we got some sneak peek footage, pictures, images, whatever you want to call it, of the Samsung Galaxy Z Wide Fold or Z Fold Wide. We don't have an official name yet, but we do know it's wide. So I'm sure that'll be somewhere in the name, right? We got that, as well as an S26 Ultra mock-up. We got some colors, a good view, right? To kind of show you what it looks like pre-release. That date is coming up quick. We're officially 10 days away from the launch date now. We're going to fully cover here at eSIMstudios. We're going to fully cover the launch of the S26 series, specifically the Ultra. We're going to be getting one, if not two. And then we're also going to be covering this Z Wide Fold. Now, we're going to jump into the Z Wide Fold first. Images, dimensions, possible camera specs. Samsung, we have estimations of how many they're going to produce, right? And its competitors, wink wink, Apple. So let's go ahead. Hope everybody's having a good afternoon. Let me say hi to everybody. What's going on here? My mouse is stuck. Hell yeah, damn right. Hope you're doing good. Good evening, happy Sunday. Yes, you too. What's going on? It's a pleasure to see you. The Z Wide Fold, I'm kind of interested in. You know, I am too. And that's why I wanted to jump on here, go live, and see how y'all are feeling about this, because this is a really interesting device. Like, when you first, the initial thoughts, right, when Samsung was going to make a Z Fold, and well, look, let's put it this way. We first knew that we got word that Apple was going to put out their foldable, right? And then you got word of the weird dimensions that this fold, it's not going to be your typical, it's not going to be like a Z Fold 7, right? Z Fold 6 that we're used to, right? Where it looks like a regular phone when it's closed, it just opens up. Apple's doing something completely different, and I think they did that on purpose, right? I think they did that on purpose to be different, and now we know it's going to be essentially the opposite. So if you take a phone, how Samsung's phone is, the Fold, just for people that don't know, I know most of y'all watching already know, but the Fold 7 is like a phone that just opens up into two phones. Apple's is essentially going to be like this, and then you just fold it shut. So it's going to be small, it's going to be wide, similar to the OG Pixel. Have no fears, I do have photos for everyone. Maybe I should just show those first before we get into trying to explain it. But Apple is going to have a foldable that really doesn't look like any other foldable, and as we mentioned, they're probably doing that on purpose. And then Samsung, copycats that they are going to make a similar product. Now, we got a few tips and or leaks that are going to make, now we're going to focus on Samsung's new foldable, not Apple's, but we got a few tips to why this is very intriguing, very interesting, and we're going to look at sales projections, right, where Samsung thinks they're going to sell this, and then possible release dates. But let's go ahead and jump into what this thing looks like, right, because now we there's been some graphics put together, and it looks pretty cool. So let me show you the first one here. That looks pretty cool. The first thing that stands out is the dimensions, right? It almost looks like a square, and it's gonna be, I know with Android apps taking you behind the scenes, I have an app on the App Store, and I've looked into how this app is going, my app, and I'm sure other developers, how their apps are going to look on these displays. It's basically going to be optimized already, right, to fit now I can tweak it on the back end, right, how I want stuff to kind of fit on these displays, because these are not typical phones. Your typical phone is a candy bar style phone, or it's a rectangle, right? It's the aspect ratios fairly common with every phone. Of course, there's some minor adjustments like the Z Flip 6 where it's really tall and slender. This is a whole nother story. This thing's damn near like a square. It's not, but I think it's going to benefit the user and or usability. And as I was mentioning, it's going to be up to the developers to kind of tweak their apps to get this screen size fine-tuned. Now, look at this. It's a 9:7 outer display, a 9:7 ratio outer display. It looks pretty cool, right? It looks really, really nice. Now, let's get to the inner display. You're going to have a 16:10 inner display that folds open. Now, I think this form factor, for me personally, I've never purchased a fold. I've purchased all the flips, right? Regular phone, like the old StarTax, right? I've had all the flips, but never went that extra mile and got a fold just because I personally don't like the aspect ratio. I don't like the way it feels on my hand when you're holding it when it's closed. Now, the new one's different, the Z Fold 7, because it's so razor thin. When it's closed, it feels like you just have a normal phone. But I don't like the aspect ratio when you open it up. It's not like a tablet, right? It'd be one thing if it was like a tablet in a phone, which this new one is. So I think this new ratio is going to hit a sweet spot. The trifold that Samsung just released is too much. It's too much. Well, it's too much money. It's like $3,000, but it's almost too much to worry about. It's too much display to worry about, right? It's a freaking tablet you can fold up into your pocket. That's too much, right? I mean, look, everybody's different, but for me personally, it's too much, right? Like, what if you're sitting at a grocery store? Of course, you can use it like a regular phone, but folding it open into a tablet is too much. I think this is going to be the sweet spot for those of y'all like myself that don't really like the Fold 7, especially when it's opened up, or don't like the trifold that's basically like the size of a good sized tablet when you open it up. I think this is the sweet spot for a lot of people like myself that want a foldable, but just something's not right. I think this is it. I think Samsung has something. I've been looking at these pictures all day, and I'm like, you know what? I think Samsung has something on here. Has something with this device. The trifold is an interesting concept. It's too expensive for the current market. Way too expensive. And it's kind of, when they say, oh, it's sold out in 2 minutes. Well, of course it's going to sell out in 2 minutes if you only make 200 of them, or 2,000. I don't know how many they made. Obviously more than 200, but I'm just saying it's not like they made 2 million of them, right? If you have a phone, a foldable, that's $3,000, and realistically, I think they made 200,000 of them. Of course, it's going to sell. They know. It's like Ferrari. Whenever they come out with a brand new model, a brand new car, they always produce one less than what they think they can sell, just to keep that supply and demand, try to keep it even, right? They want to supply the people that definitely want one, but they don't want to produce so many to where they got to drop the prices and it looks like they're struggling to sell them. So it was strategic for them to produce a decent amount. And look, it's a showstopper, especially on YouTube, online, on social media. The trifold, yeah, it looks cool, but realistically, I would be more worried about it carrying it around than enjoying the device, right? So again, this is a sweet spot. Now, let me show you what it looks like compared to other devices. So more similar to the OG Pixel Fold that came out, the original Pixel Fold that came out in 2023. That was when it first came out. It was a double take, right? Because you're like, that looks weird. I almost prefer the new Z Fold wide version than the old Pixel or the new Fold 7. Now that says Fold 8 because I think getting geared towards the future when these are going to be released, but it'll probably, the Z Fold 8, which is a future device, probably going to be right around the same dimensions as the current Fold 7. Essentially looks the same as this picture, but it gives you a good scope in comparison of what this new device looks like compared to the other ones. Obviously shorter, wider, but I think the real show-stopping experience is when you're going to be able to open this thing up, right? Now, when you open it up, boom, it's going to look like that. So you see what I mean? The Pixel Fold was a decent idea, but look, you got black bars on the top and bottom. It's kind of a weird, more of a square design for the Pixel Fold on the left. And with the with the Z Fold 7 on the right, that's more of a square. So the new Z Fold Wide, Z Wide Fold, it looks like what a TV would look like, and or a a horizontal YouTube video would fit perfectly on there, right? It just looks like it's made for video and or content, more like a display monitor, more like a TV. You're not going to have these weird dimensions that you currently see with Google and Samsung in their current Fold 7 series. Now, let's look at this. So here's another mock-up of the display. Now, somebody brought up a good point on the last live stream. If you take the Z Fold 7, the device on the left, and you tilt it horizontally, so take the left Z Fold 7, tilt it to the right, or if I guess the left, either way, it might be similar dimensions to the Z Wide Fold on the right. However, when you first open it up out of your pocket, this is what they look like. So yeah, you could use the Fold 7 similarly if you rotate it, but I still don't think that would be perfect dimensions. And who wants to fumble over their phone every time when you open it up, right? So I still think the Z Wide Fold has an advantage that way as well. Because I was looking at this graphic earlier, and I was like, yeah, you could rotate the Z Fold 7 sideways. But then why would you want to do that? When you open up the phone, pull it out of your pocket, you're looking at your lock screen, you just want to open it up. You don't want to open it up and rotate it, right? Plus your home screen, everything, you just want to open it up, boom, you want to go. You want to rock and roll as soon as you open it, right? Even if you tilt it, it's still a little bit more wider, but not too much. Yeah. It looks like it might be good for 4x3 content, though. Certainly does. I'm waiting for that wide fold to come out. I am too. Now, before we get into the sales projections, which we'll do here in a minute, let's look at possible camera configuration and or sensor configuration right now. These are just estimates, right? We don't know. And whoever put together this graphic, sorry, I don't have the originator of these graphics. Maybe I'll link it down below after this is done. But Z Wide Fold on the left, which looks like the side of a Z Fold 7, but the left side is supposed to be the new Wide Fold, and the Fold 8, which is on the right. So if Samsung, look, we don't know what the specs are. We only know a very few, I think, and I don't even know if I can say confirmed specs, but there's some aspects of this device that we have some solid concrete evidence that it'll have in tow, right? And what is that? Well, we do know it's going to have a flat display. So apparently the crease is gone. So Samsung is going to be supplying Apple with the very same OLEDs and or displays for Apple's new foldable. Now, Apple is using a liquid metal hinge, which I believe we reviewed a month or two ago when that news came out that Apple's is going to be crease-free. Well, I don't know if Samsung partnered with Apple. I don't know. I do know Apple patented that hinge design. So if Samsung is using the same hinge design to make it a crease-free display when it's open, they would have to compensate Apple for using that patented technology. Or Samsung came up with their own crease-free technology hinge. I don't know which one it is, but from the research I've done, this is going to have a crease-free display, which is music to my ears. Now, the crease really doesn't bother me. When you're using a flip and or a fold, you really can't. I mean, look, can you tell it's there? Sure, if you're looking for it. But just regularly using the device, it's a non-factor to me. Now, I know some that have never used a foldable before. Might take a little it may take a little while to get used to. But coming from the very first foldable, I don't know if any of y'all watching have ever had a foldable. I used the very first foldables, I've had every flip dating back to 7 years ago. When the first one came out, there was a crease. It looked like a river running right down the center of the screen. Now it's 80% gone. So there's 20% of the crease where it used to be on the original flip. But I think removing that extra 20%, meaning you have a complete flat plane, I think is going to be a game changer. And I think we're going to really, really enjoy these foldables moving forward into the future with zero crease. But again, not like it bothers me now, but I think just not having it, whenever you scroll your finger up and down the screen, you can feel it. But visually, you don't really see it, right? Especially in dim light, because all you see is just a nice, beautiful OLED display. So we do know it will have a crease-free design. Now, Samsung really wants to compete and put this up there with the flagship foldables, and I think they do. They need to put the 200 megapixel sensor that they put in the Fold 7 and the one that they're putting in the S26 Ultra, which we're going to look at here in just a second. They need to put a 200 megapixel sensor in there, which I agree with this graphic. I think it needs that main sensor of 200 megapixels. That's their flagship sensor for their flagship devices. And I would hope they were going to put a 50 megapixel ultra wide like this graphic says. I hope they don't throw some 12 megapixels in there, which they've done, or a 10 megapixel telephoto sensor. They need to put the best sensors they can find in these devices. These are premium devices. I'm sure, I don't know what this is going to be priced at, but it's not going to be cheap. I can tell you that. So I think Samsung needs to throw its customers a bone. Samsung just now in the current Fold 7 put flagship sensors in their devices. So with the older Fold 6, Fold 5, Fold 4, they put some shitty sensors in there, let's be honest. Even dating back to the Flip series, pretty bad sensors, right? I mean, it was not known for their photography. It was more known for the usability and fun, right? The enjoyment you get out of using a foldable. Those days are gone. You got to step your game up, or I think that's people, are just simply not going to buy this if Samsung doesn't put their best foot forward in these specs, right? Now, moving on to specs, we'll get into a possible launch date and price. I think it's going to have probably the latest Snapdragon processor, right? It would be interesting though. What if Samsung chose to put their Exynos 2600 in here? It has that new heat bypass technology where it's not going to. So I think putting a very powerful processor in a very thin device. Before these, that's something you'd worry about. The S25 Edge, that's what I worried about. Very powerful processor in a very thin device. Well, those processors generate a ton of heat, and trying to get rid of that heat is an issue when you have such a thin device, right? Where's that heat going to go? Samsung's new Exynos processors have a heat bypass technology. It's a new way that they pack their CPU. Essentially eliminates majority of the heat that the old processors, the way that they used to pack those processors, it eliminates a lot of that heat. It would be interesting if they put the Exynos 2600 in there, which they can do. We do know they haven't supplied all the latest flagship Samsung phones with their own processors because Samsung just can't make enough of them, right? Samsung's planning to sell millions upon millions of phones. Well, what if If they're projecting the S26 Ultra to sell 12 million devices, but they can only make 6 million processors, there's an issue, right? So that's why they're doing a split release. Some S26s with with the Snapdragon processors, some with Exynos. But they're not going to make as many of these as you think, right? Because here are these sales projections. 1 million. 1 million. Now, they're going to produce, they expect to sell 3.5 million upcoming Z Fold 8 devices. So 1 million is a decent number. And like I said, we don't know for sure, but they probably made 200,000 trifolds. So I think this is going to be more popular. I'm going to be honest. Here's my honest take on this. This is more intriguing. I'm looking forward to this wide fold way more than a Fold 8. Again, the size, the cool factor, the dimensions, everything looks pretty freaking awesome. I think 1 million is a decent estimation. Quite honestly, I think this, if they make more, and if they market it right, because that's the other thing. If they can market this thing, if they can get this out there, it's going to go head to head with Apple's foldable. So I know there's going to be a ton of YouTube videos comparing the Apple foldable, Apple iPhone Fold, and the Z Wide Fold. So I know people will know it's out there. I think they're going to be able to sell these. Depending on the price, how much do you think these are going to go for? What do you think is the perfect price point? No to Exynos. We shall see. That's the other thing we don't know, and I think Samsung needs to take a hard look at this, is putting that digitizer under the display that picks up the stylus. I think if they can bring back S Pen support for this Z Wide Fold, I think that would kill it. I think that would kill it. That would get me wanting really, really bad to get one. They removed S Pen support from the Z Fold 7, and that was a big hit, right? Just simply because they made it so thin. They literally could not put an extra layer, a digitizer layer that picks up a stylus. They have to have a special layer under the display that picks up the little tip of the S Pen. The Fold 7 was so thin they couldn't even fit it in there. Now, I think the wide fold will be relatively thin, but I don't think they're trying to make it paper thin. So I think they can introduce the S Pen support back into a foldable. If they can do it for one device, one foldable going into the future, this needs to be it. This needs to have an advantage over the Apple foldable, because when you're a competing company, what are your advantages over your competitor, right? I have not heard anything that the Apple iPhone Fold will support the, what do they call it? The Apple Pen. I haven't heard anything in regards to that, meaning the iPhone Fold being compatible with their stylus. If Samsung can bring back S Pen support with this, that's a huge, huge advantage Samsung would have over the competition, right? I'm gonna have to be ready for the wide fold and buy fast on launch day. Yeah, now they are manufacturing more of these than the trifold, because I know those trifolds went out in what, like 2 minutes, right? Which is insane for a $3,000 device, right? I'm assuming it's gonna have a 2K price tag. That was gonna be my estimation. I think they're gonna ask 2K for it, slightly more. Because what does the Z Fold 7 go for? Is it 1,800? I think it's 1,800. Best Buy selling them for 1,600. So if you can get, if Samsung can price this at about $19.99, right around 2,000, because again, going back to the competition, Apple is going to price theirs right around 2K. So that sounds about right, right? They don't want to overprice themselves and have people go choose the Apple iPhone Fold, and they don't want to undercut Apple. I'm sure they do a little bit, but if you undercut them too much, you're going to be missing out on profit. So I think 2K is the sweet spot. Now, when is this going to be available? You know, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. Do you think the cameras will be horizontal or vertical? I personally believe they're going to be vertical, but I wish they were horizontal. And for one reason is so it won't wobble when it's closed and on its back. It's like having a Pixel. If you have a Pixel laying naked with no case on a table on a flat surface, there's no wobble whatsoever. If you have a S25 Ultra, if you have an iPhone, if you have even the Motorola Signature laying down on a table, it wobbles when you try and use it, and it sucks. I hate that. I think they're gonna go with a vertical camera array. I think they're gonna stick to the same design, the same look as an S25 Ultra, the same aesthetics sort of as the Fold line, right? The Z Fold 7. Now may not be identical, right? But I think they're gonna put them down the side, sort of like probably like the S25 Edge. Now, that's a key part of the phone that I think is underrated when it comes to, if you're somebody like myself that loves the design of phones, that loves the way they look, they feel, the aesthetics, that's a very, very, very key part that a phone company could mess up. Because from the surface, looking at the front of this Z Wide Fold, meaning the front display when it's closed, and looking at it when it's open, it looks beautiful. But turn it around, flip it around, and look at the back. How many times have you seen a really, really nice looking phone, and then you look at the camera setup, and you're like, damn, that thing looks ugly as hell. You know, so many phones. It's very rare that I look at a phone, and I'm like, wow, that's beautiful. Like the Pixel. Y'all can say what you want. I know a lot of people like the way they look. I love the way the Pixel 9 series looks. The Pixel 10s, they're the best looking phones I think ever made. Just visually appealing. I love them. I love the way it just you know exactly what you're looking at when you see a Pixel, right? It'll be interesting to see what they choose and how it will look, the colors, right? All that goes into play. I just hope they put some good sensors on there. You're waiting on the Razr Fold. Yeah, I'm gonna try to grab me one of those that has stylus support. So I'm actually looking to get a stylus. I need to grab one off of eBay. I think they're available right now. Yeah, that's another thing with MagSafe. If they do vertical, because the dimensions of that when it's folded closed, it's almost like a square. You know, you bring up a fantastic point. If it's vertical, it may completely mess up MagSafe and or wireless charging. They would almost not be forced, but placing those cameras is very, very strategic because you're not working with a lot of surface area, right? I mean, it's essentially going to be a square. Look at this thing when it's closed, right? I mean, that the MagSafe ring is going to take up, just imagine a ring and putting it right on the center of the phone there, and then just imagine it being on the backside. You're right. They may have to go horizontal across the top. I hope they do that. I just hope they make it nice looking, visually appealing, right? Because as I mentioned, there's so many phones that you're like, damn, that thing looks cool from the front, but it's ugly as hell from the back. I was going to say, oh, never mind. Never mind. I think you'll know what I was going to say. The Pixel 9s are best looking Pixels of all the Pixels, in my opinion. Yeah, the 6 series was a shock when it came out with the horizontal, but it looks so robotic. The way they have it now, perfect. So We got to the price, maybe around $2,000. Now release date. When is this going to be released? We have no clue. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be released and or launched like the Edge S25 Edge. So in July is when they have their was when they introduced their foldables. The Fold 7, Flip 7 was in July, Flip 6, Fold 6, July, and you can go date back and back and back each year. So I think this July, I think they're going to introduce and or launch the Flip 8 and Fold 8. And then I think they're going to do like a sneak peek, sort of like they did for the S25 Edge. They get up there, they talk about the phones or whatever, and then they said, look what we've been working on. And then they show some big advertisement, whatever, and kind of introduce to the world the wide fold, right? And then I think it'll probably be launched, and they don't have to have a dedicated launch just for this, just like the Edge, right? They announced it with the release of the S25 series, and then 2 months later, they put out a press release, send out a bunch of devices to YouTubers to be reviewed, and then you can just buy them online. I think that's what they're going to do with this, quite honestly. I think they're just going to announce it in July with the other foldables, and then a few months later, they'll send out a press release and let everybody know that they are available for sale. But it looks cool. It looks really cool. I think I'm gonna like this. So I may try and get my hands on one of these. Looks very, very cool. Now, give me just a second, and I will upload the S26 photos that I have. Whoops. Now, with the S26 series, we're coming up on only 10 days away. 10 days away. Pretty soon, right? We got colors. We got images. Let me pull them right now. StreamYard only lets me input, I think, 10 images at a time. So we'll load this one. We will load this one. And we shall load this one. And I want to know what color you think looks best. So we got this image. I mean, a nice picture there of the phone. And the model holding it, obviously. But you're gonna be seeing a lot of this purple Pixel. Oh, Jesus Christ. You're gonna be seeing a lot of this purple S26 Ultra. Excuse me. Got Pixel in my mind. The Cobalt Violet is their signature color this year, so you're gonna see it on commercials. You're gonna see all the people that they send phones out to. I'm still waiting on my email, Samsung. You're gonna see a lot of creators with this purple device. It is what it is. I don't know why they chose purple, but it's kind of girly to me. I'm sure that's why a girl's holding it, but I'm not going to be getting the purple one. But it looks nice. So yes, it's a refresh, right? But I think what they're doing is building upon the flagship Android platform, right? Say what you want, but when the average person thinks of the best Android device, right? I think majority of people are going to think the flagship Samsung, right? Of course, there's Pixel, but look, numbers don't lie. And the S26 Ultra far outsells any other flagship Android. So this is the king of flagship Android, at least when sales, right? But I think what they're doing is building upon an already winner. Now, I've seen a couple articles already this weekend of people in the tech space thinking and or saying that this is going to flop, meaning they're just not going to sell as many as they hoped, which might be the case. One thing's for sure is it's not going to be a bad device. Now, if it doesn't sell as well as Samsung hoped for, that means most people probably have an S25 that were thinking of upgrading to this, and they just don't see much of a need to upgrade. But I think where you're going to see a lot of sales come from, I think Samsung's going to generate a lot of sales from people that have an S24 series, an S23 series, an S22 series, right? I think you're going to see sales come, some, not a lot, from Apple people that are tired of using iPhone. I think that's where you're going to see most of the sales from Samsung. I think a lot of people are going to stick with their S25 Ultra, and I think Samsung, in the back of their minds, not necessarily they're okay with that, but as long as you're using a Samsung device, as long as you're not going from a Samsung to an Apple device or to a Pixel or to Motorola, right? But this will be a good device, right? Of course, people are going to shit on it, yes. But overall, it's going to be great. Now, I hope I don't have the overheating issues that I did last year. I don't think I will. They put a much larger vapor chamber in here, from what I understand, and the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 seems to be perfectly fine on thermals, right? From my testing so far. So I don't think they're going to have an issue with overheating. But let's look at some of these colors. So here are the colors you're going to be able to get. That's not necessarily the greatest rendition or mock-up of the S26 Ultra, because it still looks like an S25 Ultra. The S25 Ultra is more boxy, is more squared, has more of a 90, even though it doesn't, but it looks like it has a 90-degree angle on each corner. This one, as you can tell, it's more rounded, right? So it's essentially going to look like an S25 Plus, just a little bigger and with some more cameras. But the S25 Plus is a little more rounded on the corners. This one is a little better picture right here of what you can expect, right? It's going to be a little more rounded. It's going to fit in your hand a little better. It's going to be lighter. It's going to be thinner than previous years. I think you'll be able to tell that. Even if they shave just a little bit off, you can tell thickness. If you're used to holding a big bulky phone like an iPhone 17 Pro Max, and you switch to this, you're gonna be like, damn, this thing's thin and this is light. It's like the Motorola Signature, right? When I'm using it, I can tell. I mean, as soon as I pick it up, I'm so used to holding my S25 Ultra. When I pick this thing up, every single time I pick it up since I've had it, I'm like, oh, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, damn, this thing's light and thin as hell. So I think you're going to be able to tell the difference. And the showstopper for Samsung is going to be that display. It's going to be that display. You're going to see them market it. You're going to see commercials, the privacy display. All right. I think that's going to be the selling point, because what else are they going to sell it on? It's got the same cameras, right? Performance, probably not going to be able to tell the difference, even though it has a more powerful processor. A phone is a phone. When you get to the flagship level, I can't really tell the difference. Sure, it may render a 10-minute 4K video faster, but just day-to-day usage, can't really, you know what I'm saying? You can't really tell. But the differentiator between the S26 Ultra and Motorola Signature is going to be the display. The differentiator between the S26 Ultra and an iPhone 17 Pro Max is going to be the display. Now, I know Apple put anti-reflective displays on their iPhones this year. It's not going to be close. Samsung's putting out anti-reflection 2.0, and how did we forget a display that is not breakable? I mean, technically it's breakable, but Gorilla Glass is putting out a brand new, never before seen or heard of glass that will be on this S26 Ultra that apparently is going to get rid of screen protectors. It's unscratchable. So I think the display is their big selling point. It's going to be bright. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be colorful. It should be fantastic. And Samsung always does good with displays, but this one I think this one's going to have special little touch to it, right? Hey, what's going on, Bradley? I hope it flies. If you own a 23, 24, 25, absolutely no reason to upgrade. You don't. You really don't. My former Apple friends that moved to Android did solely for a Z Flip. Do they like it? Because I know a lot of people have done that. Specifically the Flip, just because, of course, Motorola has one and the Razr, but the Flip is it's a fun phone to use, right? It's a fun phone to use. The trade-in will be a big one depending on what they give older models. Some people might hesitate to upgrade. Yes. And look, we went over it last live stream. We know what they're going to give you for last year's previous flagship, the S25 Ultra. There's a $900 trade-in credit. It's at the very top of the list. But what we don't know is how much are they going to give for the S25 Plus? How much are they going to give for the S25? How much are they going to give for the S24 Ultra, 24 Plus, 24, 23? How much are they going to give for the Z Flip 6? Right? Because the Flip 7 was not in the trade-in list. The Fold 7, not in the trade-in list. So yes, it will be interesting to see how much value they give for your trade-in. That's for sure. And that's a fine science. They hire people, that's all they do is just figuring out, because look, you're off by, if their formulations are incorrect and you're off by, I don't know, $10 on a device, that could equate to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on the back end that they potentially lose out on. So it's a very, very fine science. Does the S26 series have the built-in privacy display as well? I don't believe so. So that's a great question that we don't have a definitive answer on. But in my opinion, I think they're saving that for the Ultra. Now, will the S26 and S26 Plus have the new Gorilla Glass and or anti-reflective display? Maybe. But will it have the privacy shade, or what are they calling it? They can black out the notifications, the privacy shade. I think they're gonna reserve that for the Ultra because they've always done that on something dating back with all of their phones. The Ultra always has something extra to entice you or the consumer to purchase over their cheaper products, right? They've done that with all sorts of products that Samsung puts out, and they're not the only ones. Google, Apple, a lot of companies do that, right? They could put the Gorilla Glass in all of them, and they should. They should put anti-reflective displays in all of their devices, just like all their flagship devices, like Apple does. But I think they're going in will they? Probably this year, right? Apple took it one step forward and put anti-reflective displays in all of their 17 lineup. So I think Samsung's going to follow suit and do that this year. But I think they're saving the privacy shade just for the Ultra, right? How do you think it will be with the display that Samsung is claiming? How true you think it will be with the display that Samsung is claiming? Pretty true. I mean, one thing Samsung does and does very well are displays, right? So take it for what you will. I know, and look, I'll be the first to say I criticize them a lot for some of the stuff that they do, but displays are not one of them. I mean, they could have put the M14 OLED display on the S25 series, right? They waited a whole year, but I think these leaks and these rumors and this news that's kind of trickling out, I think it's pretty true. Yeah, it'd probably be an Ultra feature. Your daughter loves the Flip. Yeah, it's a fun phone to use. I just wish they had a little better sensors on the back. You know what? That's a good question. I did not see it, did I? No, it wasn't on there. Damn, that sucks. See, that's why I wish they would. Tells you it probably doesn't have much resale value, because you know what they do with those trade-ins is the real good ones that are in really, really good condition. They turn around and sell them. You can actually buy a a refurbished phone on the Samsung website. I think if you go all the way at the bottom, I think it says like buy a refurbished or something like that. They'll sell the really, really good condition ones refurbished on their website and they turn around and sell them wholesale to retailers that sell used phones. So I guess that tells you there's not much resale price in the Edge, right? Oh, cool. I appreciate you stopping by. I meant this to be a quick one, but we're already past my 30-minute limit, so I'm gonna have to go here soon too. Um, all these will have private glass. All three will have private glass. You mean the shade, right? Is that what you're talking about? The private shade that blocks out notifications from the left and right? I hope so. But it makes me wonder what they're gonna leave for the Ultra series. It would be nice if they do that. Don't get me wrong. And I actually hope they do that. I just anticipate them saving at least one feature, right? If it's not the privacy glass, I don't know. Maybe it's something else for the Ultra, but they've typically done that for every series dating back for a while. Bluetooth returning to the Ultra. Bluetooth S Pen? No. That's, nobody's been talking about that. But one context clue that we can point to where it's not going to have a Bluetooth S Pen is we have not seen any Bluetooth certification. So this week, you're going to see FCC filings. We'll know for sure this week because right up before they launch, they get these devices certified by the FCC. And that's where we get to see what Bluetooth is on there, what version. If you look back at FCC filings from Samsung's Galaxy line a couple years ago when it had a Bluetooth S Pen, you'll see the filing in the device information. You'll see the Bluetooth certification for the S Pen specifically. So when it gets released this week, I'm expecting it to be this week. Usually it's not like a week before they come out. It's typically 2 weeks before. It's right up until the launch. So this week they should be certified. Stay tuned to the channel because we're going to dive into those documents, look at the certification, and see if it has Bluetooth S Pen. I got my fingers crossed, but it doesn't look good. I haven't heard anything. Absolutely zero when it comes to Bluetooth and S Pen. It sucks. Yes, it sucks. Appreciate you joining us today. How's everything in Argentina? Forgot to mention to you last time, one of my favorite basketball players, Manu Ginobili from Argentina. It's a little dated, but can't tell you any soccer players, so Ginobili is all I got for you. They absolutely make the best displays. M13 of my S24 Ultra is absolutely beautiful. Huge step up from the 21 Ultra. Boy, it was. That's a beautiful display. Yes. I think you're disappointed with Samsung for not using silicon carbon batteries. I am too. And we've talked about this in the past, why they're not putting them in there. They just can't physically buy enough silicon carbon to manufacture to put them in millions and millions of phones. OnePlus can do it because they're only selling a few million phones, right? But I think Samsung, I've got a word that they're testing something similar. So it's not specifically silicon carbon, but it's the next generation in lithium ion batteries. So it's probably silicon carbon 2.0, right? It's something on the cutting edge of battery technology that we should see them start implementing in Samsung phones probably in a year or two. I think we're still a year or two away. It is what it is, but when you're selling how many S? So they plan on selling 12 million S26 Ultras alone, and you add on a few more million S26 and S26 Plus. So you're looking at, I don't know, 16 or 17 million phones. That's a lot. That's a lot of parts. That's a lot of product. It's a lot of batteries, but I think they're working on something. I've heard that they got a new battery technology that they're testing in the lab as we speak. So I think we'll see that pretty shortly down the line. Because once you use a OnePlus phone, it's life-changing. It's freaking incredible. The battery life, and I'm going to do a video on this tomorrow, I promise. Battery life on my Motorola Signature It's fantastic. Fantastic. Charging's fast. Battery lasts a long time. I'm going to jump in that tomorrow. It's been raining here all weekend. I was going to go out and take some photos on this new operating system, this new monthly update that we got for the signature. I was going to go out and take some photos, but it's been raining all weekend. So tomorrow I'm going to take some pictures and talk about the battery life on this signature, because it is good, and it has a silicon carbon battery. So Ginobili, yes, Manu Ginobili. This is my favorite players. No Bluetooth S Pen. I doubt the Bluetooth S Pen, man. It sucks. I sure wish the Z Wide Fold has S Pen support. Get an honor with that huge 10,000 milliamp hour battery. Yes. I love big batteries, and I'm glad they're finally starting to put them in devices. I think Flossie Carter just reviewed that one. Didn't he post that video today or late last night? I believe he did, but it's getting about that time, folks. We're pushing up on an hour. I got to get out of here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Glad you asked. I'm going to go take some comparison photos tomorrow. So I'm going to get S25 Plus. I only have the Ultra, but I'm still going to use that as my... I don't have the S25 Plus. I have S25 Ultra. But I'm actually going to use... I'm going to go out tomorrow, take some pictures with the S25 Ultra, and compare them side-by-side video comparison of the Motorola Signature and the S25 Edge. So I'm going to do a video, compile some camera comparisons between these two tomorrow. So I think it's supposed to be sunny skies tomorrow. So I will be outside taking photos and upload that, and then we'll also discuss battery life and stuff like that. There's also a good battery app. I'll probably do an app review probably not tomorrow, but I might get into it tomorrow. There's a battery application. You can't get it on the Play Store, and I hate recommending apps that are not on the Play Store because I don't want you to download any malicious APKs. So I might not like post a link for it where you can find it, because I don't want to be responsible for that. But there's a battery app that's not on the Play Store, and it's not on the Play Store because it dives deeper into your battery stats. However, you have to enable these battery stats in ADB, meaning you have to jump on ADB on a PC and essentially unlock the battery stats from inside the phone being plugged into your computer. You kind of have to unlock battery stats, but I'm going to do that tomorrow. And I'll let you know what the app is called if you're interested, but I'll show you how to do it as well, but we'll get into that tomorrow. Appreciate the time. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day, no matter where you're located. Argentina, New Orleans, Singapore. I really, really appreciate the time, and I hope everybody has a great day. Tomorrow's a holiday, well, at least here in the U.S. it is. So we'll definitely see you tomorrow, and have a good evening. Appreciate it. Same to you. Yes. Smash that like button. Damn right. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Ginobili! Peace.